Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to our coffee times to talk about horror. And today I have a big list of new releases. We're here to talk about all of the thrillers and horrors that are coming out in the month of October.
It's coffee time.
As always, I have curated a list with things that I have found interesting or things that potentially you guys might find interesting. I have here different types of books, thrillers, horrors, YA readers, adult readers, and I have a whooping total of 42 books. So we're gonna be here for a little bit. I'm gonna try as always to be quick and precise and just give you a little bit of a glimpse into what these books are about. I will let you know the publication date, and I always take the one that is on Goodreads for the majority of it. So those, dates might be different from depending on which country you live. So let's get started. Grab your coffee and let's go. Let's start with Influencer by Adam Cesar, and this is an adult book, but many people have been putting it into the category of YA on Goodreads because they feel like this book reads very much YA. However, I already got my pre-order copy of this book, and on the back it says not suitable for young readers, so I am slightly confused. So I am just letting you know. As soon as I read the book, I will confirm or deny these accusations against the book. But as far as I know, it's an adult book, but apparently it reads quite YA. We follow Aaron, and he's new in town, and he's very cocky, he's very rich, and very much loves to display his power and how rich he is. And we have Crystal, who is determined to expose him on social media. She wants to expose him because she believes that Aaron is a fraud, that the things that he says are lies, and because she starts to expose him, now somebody has put a target on her back. Let's go now with a horror novella. It is called Antenora by Dory Lumpkin. Apparently, Antenora is Dante's ninth circle of hell reserved for traitors of their country. This book is about two girls that live in a small town that is very religious, and because of the things that these two girls have thought or have done, they have been accused of multiple things. They have even been accused of being even possessed. People in town always say that they were trouble, and I guess they are being stigmatized because of the things that they have said or done that might have not aligned with religion. So I'm guessing this is kind of like probably a coming of age story, like two girls finding themselves and making their own decisions even though it is against their town and their religion, and how they're being probably even prosecuted for that. Next we have Coup de Grace by Sophia Ajram, and this is a horror mystery, and these French words mean final blow, which is a deadly blow or the final blow you give to someone that is already in pain and very injured and you just want to end their misery. So it sounds cozy. This is experimental horror, and it says it's for fans of Mark Z. Danielewski, who wrote House of Leaves, which I really enjoyed. And this is a story about a man that is trapped, I believe, in the Montreal Infinite subway station. So I'm guessing it's gonna be a little bit weird, but if it's somewhat similar to the vibe of House of Leaves, it might be something for me. The man that we follow here is called Viken, and he has decided to end his life. He's gonna go to the river and he's going to drown himself. But on the way to the river, he takes a subway station and he finds himself trapped there in an infinite loop. This sounds great to me, not the suicide part, but having someone that it is in a very dark mental space, and for some reason the universe decides that now they're trapped in this loop, maybe until he discovers that he doesn't want to end his life, maybe until something else happens to him, we don't know. Good Dogs by Brian Assman, and this is another adult horror. It is a debut novel and it is a survival story and also includes found family elements. In this world, we have werewolves, and the majority of werewolves that we have in this world are kind of casted away by their families. They don't want to see them change, they don't want to support them, so the majority of the werewolves feel very lonely, kind of like rejected by their own families. And one of those werewolves is Dahlia, and she didn't expect her future to be being like the mother of the werewolves, but she decides to create a den and kind of take all of those lost werewolves and build a pack, build a family with them. They're doing fine, but then one of the members of the pack kills someone accidentally, because at the end of the day they still sometimes cannot control themselves, and so the pack has to flee because they realize that they can no longer live among humans. Next we have the beginning of a paranormal urban fantasy, and we have Watch Hill trilogy. So the number 1 is coming out and it's called The House at Watch Hill by Karen Marie Moning. The main story in a gist is a woman that inherits a lot of money together with a gothic mansion that hides a lot of secrets. Zoe has nothing to lose, and after her mom dies, she's called to claim the inheritance, but in order to claim it, she has to go in person. So she decides to go, and they tell her that she has inherited a lot of money together with this house, but they told her there is though a condition for her to get all of this money, and that is that she needs to live in this gothic mansion for 3 years before she can access the money. Also, she has to live in it alone. Let me specify, she has to live in it alone by herself for 3 whole years. But again, Zoe has nothing to lose, and you know, the idea that just sacrificing those 3 years is gonna get her all of this money, you know, she cannot resist. Next we have another kind of paranormal story, but this is a horror mystery paranormal book, and it is called I'll Be Waiting by Kelly Armstrong. In this one you can expect haunted houses, seances, and also lost loved ones. Oh yeah, and also a spirit that wants revenge. Forgot to mention that guy. Nicola was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis when she was a kid, and she knew that probably she might not survive her 30s. And she has always lived a little bit scared, but also determined to live life. So when she met Aaron, she decided to marry him and try to live, you know, the best life possible for as long as possible. But then Aaron tragically died in a car accident, and the last thing he said to her before he died was, "I'll be waiting for you." The story hit the news because somebody took a picture of her holding him in the car crash scene, and everybody knows that she's sick, so everybody has been kind of, I don't want to say romanticizing it, but kind of, you know how the press and the people can be. And so because their story became public and tragic, you know, a woman that is dying holding her husband's in her last minute of life. So after that, a lot of spiritual people have been contacting her and telling her they can help her reach out to him on the other side, because obviously he said, "I'll be waiting for you." So this is going to be a ghost story, and there's going to be a lot of creepy moments, but I'm guessing it's also gonna deal a little bit with grief, and I like that we have here also some representation. Northern Nights by Michael Kelly, and he is the editor of this short horror story compilation. This is an anthology of strange stories as well as feverish dreams, and we have here Canada's most well-known speculative authors. So if that is kind of your vibe, if that's what you're looking for, this short horror story compilation is coming out in October, perfect for Halloween. The Namaste Slasher by Alan Shivers, and this is adult horror. I'm really excited about this one. It is a slasher, and I really enjoyed his other book. He has another trilogy that is also a slasher. His first trilogy is called Europea Halls, and you can find that on Amazon for Kindle, and he lives in Belgium, and I've been really expecting the release of this one. I'm gonna get it on my Kindle and and get to it. We follow 5 people that come all over Europe, and they have signed up for this beautiful retreat that is going to be in Croatia. But of course, we're going to have here a masked killer that is going to come for them. So kind of in the same vibe of Europea Halls, Alan Shivers really likes the slashers, and he is well versed in everything slasher. There's always nods to Friday the 13th and like the typical 80s slashers. So if that is your vibe, you need to check his books. If We Tell You by Nicola Dallin, and this is an adult thriller. If you can't trust your parents, who can you trust? That is the question that our main characters here ask themselves. We follow identical twins, and everything is good in their life until at a barbecue party, their mom and dad kill someone and then disappear. And apparently they have left them instructions on what they have to do and where they have to go. And the twins decide that they want to investigate and get to the bottom of things and find out who their parents were and why did they kill these people. And so they start to basically pretend that they are one because they're identical twins. So each day they change and they are trying to gather information from different people. Killer House Party by Lily Anderson, and this is a YA horror. This follows 4 teens that are at their graduation party. They are celebrating it in a mansion together with the rest of their colleagues, but then it kind of turns into a survival party. Basically, they are being targeted and someone's trying to kill them. This was an abandoned mansion, and basically the teens stole the keys from one of their parents. They wanted to have a celebration party for their graduation, very special, somewhere where they could party in peace and get wild and all of that. But maybe choosing an abandoned Gothic mansion that you don't know, you know, what's about, the history of the place, if anybody's even living there, maybe it's just not the best idea. Going back to adult horror, we have Model Home by Rivers Solomon. We follow the Maxwells, and they have moved into a new house, and this is a neighborhood where basically everybody is white, and they are the first Black family that moves there. So there is, you know, a barrier there, and they are having trouble adapting. Weird things start to happen to them, to the house, and they decide they are not gonna leave no matter what happens, even if the house is haunted, which is a possibility. And so they decide to stay there no matter what. Apparently this is a take on the typical American life, but also a different and fresh approach to the haunted house kind of trope. So I'm really excited to see what the author did with it. The Night Guest is a horror thriller novella, and I had the pleasure to read this book a couple of months ago. I got an ARC from NetGalley, and I read it thinking it was gonna come out soon, and then I realized that it was coming out quite late. But I can definitely recommend this book to people that are looking to a very different type of book and people that are not too squeamish. We follow a woman that doesn't know what's wrong with her, but fact is she doesn't feel very well. She always feels very tired, and she has tried multiple doctors. She has tried adjusting her diet, doing more exercise. In fact, she got herself one of those like step trackers, so one of those watches, so that she can be more active and see if that helps with her health. One morning, she wakes up and she realizes that her tracker says that she has already walked over 40,000 steps. And she's like, excuse me, I was in bed, I was sleeping? How can I walk so much on my sleep? And so she starts to worry that maybe she sleepwalks. And she's trying to figure out what's wrong with her. And that is basically all I can tell you. But it was very different, unexpected. The chapters were very short, it's very easy to read, it's a quick read, so I definitely recommend it to you guys. Necessary Poisons by Andrea Blythe, and these are horror poems. These poems are obviously inspired by poison, which I guess it can be interpreted in many different ways. And I don't really read much horror poetry, but maybe I should, because Poetry can be so effective and it is short, and you can also get so many different types of emotions and so many different types of meanings out of a poem. So maybe I should get back to that. But if you love poetry and horror, this might be a short collection for you. Next we have a horror fantasy with witches, and it is called The Book of Witching by C.J. Cook. This is a story about witches and revenge and about a mother fighting for her daughter. Clem gets a call. Her daughter, her 19-year-old daughter, has been found unconscious and it is now in the hospital. She was on a hiking trip with her boyfriend who perished in said hiking trip, and her best friend that has disappeared. Also, when her 19-year-old daughter wakes up in the hospital, she doesn't recognize her mom. She doesn't know who she is. She claims to be somebody completely different, somebody called Nyx. So of course her mother, Clem, our main character, travels to the site where they were hiking, where the accident happened, to try to find out something about it, when she comes across something that screams witchcraft. Next we have The Black Hunger by Nicholas Pullen, and this is horror gothic historical fiction. This is a horror debut and it features queer main characters in a gothic setting, which I don't see done very often, so I am very pleased. We follow John and we know that he soon will be dead. He is mourning the death of his lover and he decides to write the story of everything that has happened to them, all the darkness, all the monsters and everything that they had to go through. So this is a story about evil in the world, and I'm not sure if it's going to be told through some sort of documents, because John leaves a testament of his life. He wants to write that before he dies because he knows he's about to die. And so I don't know if it's told through notes and stuff like that, but it sounds like a very interesting way of telling their story. Next we go to more short horror stories. This one is called Elemental Forces Horror Short Stories, edited by Mark Morris. This is the 5th book in this kind of series, but the series doesn't have any particular name. But here we find many new interesting short stories. There are a total of 20 stories here, and 16 have been commissioned to well-known authors, established authors, and the other 4 were from submissions that people sent to the publisher and they decided which for one. So there is a mix between, well-known authors and a couple of new upcoming authors. The next adult horror book, it's called October, and it is by Gregory Bastianelli. This is a coming-of-age horror thriller in which we follow a magician and a dark evil force in Halloween that decide to join forces. We are in 1970 and there are 4 boys that notice that something weird is happening in town, and it matches with the arrival of a magician to town. As children go missing in the town, the 4 teenagers are trying to figure out what's going on. We're moving now to YA horror fantasy, and we have a book coming out called Red in Tooth and Claw by Lish McBride. We follow Faulan, and her granddad is dead, and she has been pretending all her life that she's a boy, and the grandfather has been disguising her as a boy in order to avoid her being married to the best possible suitor. But now the grandfather is dead, and our main character is only 16, so our main character is not able to get the inheritance because they are a minor. And so now we have a problem because now we're homeless. So our main character is now sent to a settlement, and it's supposed to be a place for outcasts, but it's also supposed to be a safe place. However, we're gonna do some really interesting discoveries and our lives are gonna be in danger. We keep going with the adult gothic horror and historical fiction. We have This Cursed House by Del Sandin. This is a Southern Gothic horror debut and follows a young Black woman that lives in Chicago, and she decides to leave town in the 1960s and moved to New Orleans because she wants to work there for a family and kind of, find a better life. But when she gets there, she realizes that this family is under a curse, and the only reason why they hired her is because they think she can break the curse. I always feel like around October we do get many short horror story compilations every year, and I think part of it is because they want to release some cool horror short story compilations, anthologies for Halloween season because they are very digestible and fun to read. And the next compilation that we have, it's called Of the Flesh, 18 Stories of Modern Horror. In this compilation, you are going to find 18 different stories to make sure there is something for everyone. Our next candidate is YA horror, and it has a very fun name. It is called Rest in Peaches by Alex Brown. Queen is not the most popular person at school, but she is responsible for cheering up all the teams at school because she is the school's mascot, and that is Peaches the parrot. One day, someone vandalizes the costume, and the thing is, nobody knew that Queen was the parrot. It was supposed to be a secret, but now she is unmasked. Everybody knows who she is, and now she's seeking revenge. So she's trying to get information and secrets from others to hurt them. But then somebody starts to target and kill those that have humiliated Queen. So who is defending her honor, I guess? Who is killing the people? This Ends Now by T.M. Payne, and this is adult mystery thriller. This one is a kind of a classic detective mystery thriller in which we have a detective with a very important case that has become even more relevant as 3 more bodies have been discovered, and they still do not have any proper suspects or anything, so clock is ticking. The detective starts to realize that a lot of the deaths that he thought were not connected might actually be, even though the victims were not killed the same way and there is no apparent modus operandi. It seems that all of these deaths that he had been investigating for a couple of months now, they're all connected. Next, I would like to talk to you about a horror novella, another short read perfect for Halloween, and that is Cold Snap by Lindy Ryan. Christine's husband had a very bad accident while he was trying to hang the Christmas lights on the roof. He fell basically, and he fell to his own death. And so Christine feels very, very guilty about it and decides to take her 15-year-old son and go to the cabin that they had already kind of reserved for the Christmas season. So she decides, it might be good for them. So they go there, and the strange noises start. Then there is a shadow, something inside of the woods. She doesn't know if it's an animal or if it is a person. This is a book about grief, but also about guilt and how we deal with the loss of someone, especially when we were maybe in one way or another involved, responsible, felt guilty about what happened to them. Next we have Rest Stop by Nat Cassidy, and this is another horror novella. I'm really excited about this one. I have really enjoyed his 2 previous books. We have Nestlings and we have Mary. So now he comes out with a horror novella, a different format for him, and I'm excited to see what he did with this story. All I know is that it's about a musician that finds himself locked inside of the bathroom of a gas station, and weird things, bad things are happening on the outside of the bathroom, but apparently he's also not experiencing the best things inside of the bathroom where he's locked. That's all I know, and I don't know what to expect because with Nat Cassidy, you never know, all bets are off. So this is one that I really want to get to. All the Hearts You Eat by Hailey Piper. This is a horror queer novel, and I think if you've read Hailey Piper before, you kind of know her style. It tends to be a little bit cosmic, a little bit weird, so if that's what you love, there is something new coming for you in October. This is a gothic horror story about a small town, the secrets that they keep, and it also has a little bit of folklore horror. Ivory's life changes when she discovers the dead body of a woman, and she starts to question what happened to her, and that is just the first mystery that she encounters in this town. So apparently it's a town full of ghosts. It might be figuratively, literally, we don't know, but it does sound like a little bit different from the typical stories that I have read or heard of from Hailey Piper. So I wonder if this one is going to be a little bit more paranormal, gothic than her other books. We are staying with adult horror gothic, and we have Curdle Creek by Yvonne Battle Felton. It says this is for fans of The Lottery, that I have not read, but also for fans of The Hunger Games, and I do love that trilogy. I'm not counting the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and stuff. That was a no for me. But the original trilogy of The Hunger Games is one of my favorite YA trilogies of all times. So anything that is similar to that, I'm interested. Curdle Creek is a place that has its own rules, its own beliefs, and it is an old black town, and everybody that lives there has to accept those kind of weird rituals and more old school beliefs. And once a year somebody's name is chosen for a move on ceremony, and I believe they have to jump inside of a well as a proof of, I guess, belief. It's supposed to be a tale about motherhood, about society, about what we inherit from our communities, and a lot of more deeper themes. It's also a little bit Lovecraftian, so it's going to be a very specific taste, but just because of these rules, traditions, rituals, and all of these ceremonies and stuff, the similarity to the Hunger Games in a way, I'm really intrigued about this one. Now we go to more YA horror, and we have The Unfinished by Cheryl Isaacs. This is a debut novel, and our main character is an athlete, and she's doing her morning run when she encounters a very mysterious pond in town. And after she, I guess, interacts, touches, goes into this pond, I don't know exactly what she does with it, but after that she starts to hear the black water. It's like she's connected with the water somehow, and then people in town start to go missing. We move again to adult, and we have another adult horror thriller, and this one is called You Better Watch Out, and it is by James S. Murray and Darren Wearmouth. As you can tell by the title, this is a typical thriller, but it is set around Christmas season, and it also follows a serial killer. So this is slowly making its way up to my TBR pile wishes for the month of December, because I do reserve the Christmas reads for December. September, October, November are Halloween months. That's just not me, that's just the rule, that's how it is. And December is Christmas, but September, October, November, we all know it's Halloween. The book starts 48 hours until Christmas, and Jessica wakes up with a gash in her head. She doesn't know where she is. All she remembers is that before she lost consciousness, she was running and somebody hit her in the head. And now she finds herself in an abandoned town together with 5 other strangers, and they all have had the same experience. They've been hit in the head and they just woken up there and they don't know where they are. But she knows that she needs to get out of this town, which is going to be very difficult as people start to be killed. So this sounds like a fun take on the serial killer. Why would somebody go through all the trouble of knocking them in the head, bringing them somewhere else, and then leaving them in this town just to hunt them? I guess it's for fun, for funsies. But it sounds interesting, and serial killers is something that I love to read about. Memorials by Richard Chismar, and this is a horror thriller. In this one, we follow a group of students that are on a road trip through the Appalachians, and then they encounter a monster, some kind of supernatural entity. That's basically the main story. We are in 1983 and three students want to film a documentary based on the Appalachians, and they go to the Appalachian backwoods and everything is fun. They're enjoying their road trip until they come across something evil, something dangerous in those woods. Another book that's coming out in October and that I am excited about is actually the sequel to The Watchers. We're finally getting a sequel. It's called Stay in the Light by A.M. Shine, obviously, and it is a horror thriller and it is a direct sequel to The Watchers. So in case you have not read or maybe watched the movie The Watchers, I'm not gonna tell you the synopsis for book 2 because I feel like it kind of spoils already a little bit. So I'm gonna tell you what The Watchers is about. So Mina has been asked to deliver something. She's on her car, driving in the middle of the woods, trying to get this delivery done because she needs the money. But then her car breaks down and nothing electronic seems to work. Her phone doesn't work and she's very desperate. She's alone. She decides to venture into the woods and she thinks, you know, I might find a house, somebody that has a cottage here with a phone, landline, something to call for help so they can help me with my car. That is kind of like her intention. But when she goes into the woods, she sees this woman screaming at her to run and to get into this shelter, kind of like a bunker. And she runs, she gets in there, and she realizes that she's now trapped inside with other people that have been in this bunker trying to survive, because outside, as soon as it gets dark, there is something that comes out every night, a creature called the Watchers, and in order to survive, you need to stay in this shelter. Our next book is adult horror fantasy, and it is called Where the Dead Brides Gather by Nuzo Ono. This is a Nigerian set horror tale of possession, malevolent ghosts, and also family tensions. There is secrets, there is murder, there is absolutely everything fun in this one. In the story, we have an 11-year-old that is possessed. It's being kind of fighting ghosts overnight, battling nightmares. There is an exorcism that takes place. Apparently, there are some brides that come back as ghosts and they're hunting the place, they're hunting the people. It is also a story about death and what comes after. In the realm of the dead, if there is a connection between that realm and the one of the living, of the humans, and if the supernatural can communicate with us. Like, it is kind of an exploration of that with a lot of elements of family. So you can expect a little bit of family drama together with the creepiness and the horror aspect of it. And of course, what do we have next? We have more short horror stories, and this one is called Barrow Beck, and it is by Andrew Michael Hurley. What I love about this one is that we are based in one town called Barrow Beck, and the inhabitants of this place have always felt that there was something evil, something supernatural, something wrong in the town. And so the short stories are all stories about the different inhabitants, about the town, and I love a nice themed short horror story compilation where things maybe are even interconnected. And you know what we have next? Another adult mystery thriller. We have here The Night of the Crash by Jessica Irena Smith. Our main character has a true crime podcast. Unfortunately, one day she is in an accident, and when she wakes up, she has no memory of what happened to her. She barely remembers anything about her life, but what she knows is that right now her mom has been murdered and her brother is the main suspect. As the police start investigating, they realize that her brother might also be connected to another murder case, a girl that disappeared after being last seen with him on Halloween night. So I guess now she has a true crime story in her own family. I mean, it's not fun, but it is ironic. We are staying with the mystery thrillers, but this time we have an adult horror mystery thriller. It is called This Girl's a Killer by Emma C. Wells. Meet Cordelia Black. She is in love with her family, you know, with her loved ones. By day, she has a very regular, fulfilling, normal job, nothing suspicious there. But by night, she loves to go out and kill bad men. That's what she likes to do. But then There comes the news that the police are investigating a possible new serial killer, and she knows that she might be in danger. I'm guessing she assumes that she's doing the right thing because she's getting rid of bad people, but who is to say that you can pass judgment on others like that? We shall see what happens here, but I think this is an interesting point of view for a mystery thriller with a serial killer, because we already know that she's a killer and the reasons why, because she thinks these are bad people. So I wonder how the story is gonna go. It sounds intriguing. And yes, we have now more short horror stories. These ones are edited by the one and only Ellen Datlow, and we have The Best Horror of the Year, volume 16. These keep coming out. I don't think I will ever catch up with them because of time, but I think these are very popular, and Ellen has been doing such an amazing job editing so many horror and sci-fi compilations, so here is another anthology for you guys. Next we have adult horror, and this one is called Haven by Mia Dahlia. You cannot choose your family, your destiny, or your legacy, and the family that we follow have inherited a house from a weird, strange aunt, and they decide to move in there after the aunt passes away and leaves them the property. And when they get there, they realize that there is something really wrong in this place, something about this place, something supernatural, some sort of secrets that are related to the aunt. They don't know what it is, but definitely there is something wrong with this place. And the story is a little bit of a haunted house story, similar to The Haunting on Hill House and those kind of like classic horror stories. So if that is what you're looking for, especially that is something very classic to read during spooky season, you have now another option, a new release. Next we have Hiding Lies by Stephanie Rose, and this is a horror thriller. We follow Lydia. She is a forensic photographer, and she realizes in a new case that she has been assigned to, she's taking pictures, there's new victims, and the bigger the case it gets, she realizes that she might actually be connected to the case and to the victims. Of course, because she feels like there is a connection with the case, she starts to get really involved, and she starts to wonder if at some point she's going to put her work at risk. But on the other hand, she's like, if there is something here that is related to me, that has anything to do with me, I need to know. So it sounds interesting. I've always been really intrigued about jobs like forensic photography. It must be such a tough job. And I wonder if there is things from her past that she has suppressed, or things from her past that are coming back now that she is confronted with these new cases. We're gonna go to something slightly lighter. We have YA horror fantasy. We have Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. We follow high school senior Andrew, and he writes really twisted and messed up fairy tales, and he enjoys his writing and, you know, getting all of that darkness around him. And he also has two best friends, and it is a set of twins that goes to school with him. One of the twins is Thomas, and Thomas draws, but his drawings are also very dark. There are drawings of monsters and creatures and really like crazy stuff. And one day Andrew realizes that Thomas is acting very weird, so he decides to follow him and sees Thomas what looks like he's fighting one of the monsters from his drawings. So are the monsters that Thomas is drawing coming to life? And also, those monsters that Thomas sketches, that he draws, they are monsters from Andrew's stories. So everything is kind of connected. Next we have The Queen by Nick Cutter, and this is adult horror. Nick Cutter is somebody that I immediately relate to body horror, and after reading The Troop, I was forever changed. You might love or hate that book, but the body horror in that book is great. The premise here sounds simple, is a woman that is trying to find her missing friend. That's the gist of it. Margaret wakes up one day, she opens her door, and she finds there an iPhone. She doesn't know where this is coming from, but then she realizes, wait, this is my friend's phone. My friend that has been missing for a month. Even the police assumes that her friend is dead, so why is she receiving now a phone? In the phone, She will find instructions, things that she needs to follow to uncover the truth of what happened to her friend. And I love these. Because it's called The Queen, I don't know if it has anything to do with bees and like their hierarchy and, you know, all the workers and all the people you need to get through, all the ants you need to get through and fight until you get to the queen, which is the final boss. We're going back to YA horror, and we have They Watch From Below by Katia de Becerra. Addie receives an invitation to do like an early introduction to her university, so she can already go to campus and already, you know, visit her dorm and kind of start already in the university. She's very eager to start classes, and of course she accepts the invitation, but when she gets there, she starts to realize that this place has many dark secrets. This is a book that people have said it's perfect for fans of The Ninth House and The Secret History, so obviously that already tells me dark academia. As Addie starts to investigate the old campus, she's going to start revealing more and more of the secrets of the place. And keeping it with YA horror, we have Lonely Places by Kate Anderson. We follow 16-year-old Chase, and after a traumatic event, her sister loses her voice. The family had been traveling for years in some sort of like I guess like a van, but at some point they decide that it's time to settle down somewhere that is a little bit more quiet and allows them to just reconnect as a family after all the tragic events. Chase gets a job at a nearby summer camp, and when she's talking there to the people, they tell her that the place where her family lives, the lookout, it is a place that it's supposed to be cursed, where bad things happen, and there is some sort of darkness involving the family that is starting to slowly change, especially her sister, and she's going to have to find a way to put an end to it before it's too late. And last but definitely not least, we have an adult mystery thriller, and it is called Leave the Girls Behind by Jacqueline Boblitz. Our main character is a college dropout, a bartender, and somebody that is really fascinated and obsessed with true crime. So she pretends, you know, in her mind, she pretends to be a wannabe detective and investigates crimes. 19 years ago, her best friend was killed, and everybody assumed that the person responsible for her death was a famous serial killer. But now, years later, another girl has been taken and has been murdered, and of course the question always comes up: did they frame the wrong killer? It was just easy to put the blame on him because he was already a serial killer. But what if it was somebody else that killed her friend? So now we have a wannabe detective that might actually put together all the clues of all of these women that might have been killed by the same person, and that person might still be running free. Alright you guys, I've been here for so long, I've already changed battery once. It's been a long video, so bear with me. And I have finished all my coffee. So I hope that you enjoyed the video. I know it was a lot, 42 titles, a lot of things coming out in October. I hope that you found some interesting titles here, something that maybe you want to add to your winter Halloween TBR pile. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you want to support me and the channel, do consider joining my Patreon. We even have a book club, we do reading sprints, so I would love to have you there. And as always you guys, thank you so much for all your support, and I'll see you all in our next coffee time. Bye!